I'm here with Jim Phillips, Vice President of Business Development for the Africa Oil Corporation. Jim's based in Ethiopia. The company is Canadian. You're part of the Lundin Group, and you have assets in 3 different countries in Africa. So Jim, why don't we just start? Why don't you briefly give us a bit of a background on Africa Oil Corporation? What was the genesis of this, and what was the thesis behind it?
We started this back in 2005 with Lundin Petroleum. We started assembling this portfolio in Kenya and Ethiopia and Somalia. It's changed a bit over the years. We've now spun off the assets into Africa Oil in 2009. We brought in Tullow as our main partner. We brought in Marathon recently. Now we're sitting on about 6 blocks in Kenya, 4 blocks in Ethiopia, and 2 in the Puntland region of Somalia. We made a couple of significant discoveries, starting last year in March with the Gamia discovery in Kenya. We followed that up with Twiga, our second discovery. And we've got quite an active operational program ongoing right now with 3 rigs.
Let's look at Kenya first. You mentioned your 2 successes. I guess that's what people know Africa Oil Corp for, in the main. How are you guys situated there, and where do you lie in that fairway?
We're right in the heart of the Lokichar Basin. We've got essentially the whole tertiary play locked up in Kenya and Ethiopia with Tullow. The first well, Gamia, was against the western bounding fault. Tullow used their experience from Uganda to help guide our first well, which was good. And the second well was in that same part of the Lokichar. Right now, I'd say one of our main goals is to reach a commercial threshold of 300 to 500 million barrels in the Lokichar Basin as quickly as we can.
And what's the plan after that? Do you think that far ahead about setting up production facilities in there? Is your plan to become a producer, or is your plan to stay and explore?
I think in the short term we'll do what we do best, that's explore. So besides reaching a commercial threshold in Lokichar, which we hope we can do by the end of the year, maybe early next year, we're trying to open up new basins. So we're exploring different parts of Kenya and Ethiopia. Tullow is our partner in that venture also. They're also a very good explorer. So it's a kind of a 2-pronged approach, reaching commercial thresholds in the Lokichar and exploring and opening up new basins.
Are there good assets left? Are there good basins left? Or has the land grab in Kenya already happened in terms of acquiring the best blocks?
Yeah, it's pretty tough going now. I think almost every single block has been licensed. There are relinquishments. We've had to relinquish some pieces of our blocks. Those could be interesting. But I think it's pretty tight right now in Kenya. I think there's some opportunities in Ethiopia still, some open blocks. We're focusing on some other countries right now to try to grow, particularly in Horn Petroleum. We're looking at a number of countries in Africa, maybe even the Middle East.
Just explain for us how Horn Petroleum fits in and then by extension what you're doing in Somalia.
Horn is a separately listed company. It has the same Africa Oil management team. Africa Oil has 45% of the shares of Horn, but it's a publicly traded company. We've used that vehicle for exploration in Somalia and Puntland. We drilled 2 wells there last year successfully. We didn't find the oil and gas we were hoping for. But we want to use that same vehicle to expand our new ventures, particularly in Africa. We'll be using Horn Petroleum.
And yet you say you haven't found anything in Somalia, but there remains a lot of interest from players. I'm thinking of Ganel and kind of these mid-cap explorers with a bit of cash in their pocket, willing to take a risk. What kind of geology do you see there? What is it that you see that maybe others haven't?
Yeah, Somalia still remains extremely prospective. What we've proved in our 2 wells, there's an active petroleum system. But like lots of East Africa, there's been rejuvenation of the structures, uplift and breaching. We think the 2 structures we drilled, unfortunately, used to be oil fields a few million years ago, but now they've been uplifted and breached. I think if we can find structures in those 2 blocks in Somalia that have retained the structural integrity, we'll make a discovery. And I think you'll see the same problem across Somaliland and Puntland. That whole area has been uplifted and jostled. So I wish the other players good luck, but they have to find something that hasn't been uplifted.
And when you say we find a discovery, we're not talking 10 million barrels of oil here, are we? We're talking, what kind of sizes are we looking at?
No, we don't look for 10 million barrel fields, particularly in a place like Somalia. We're looking at things that are on the order of at least 100 million barrels, if not 200 or 300 million barrel fields.
Finally, Ethiopia, a place that you call your home, that you've lived in for several years. What is it, same question really, what is it in Ethiopia? How are you situated? What's the drilling activity been like that been recently?
Ethiopia is picking up pace. We're drilling a well with Tullow called Sabisa in South Omo. It's an area that's never seen any exploration whatsoever. We announced recently that we did reach the total depth of the well. We did find hydrocarbons. We don't know exactly what we have. We're in the process of logging that well right now. In terms of catalysts, that's one of the main catalysts the investment community is looking for. In the next, I'd say, 10 days, we should have an announcement on Sabisa.
So watch this space then in the very, very near term. Since you mentioned catalysts, what about in the next 12 months? What are we looking out for in news flow? What are you most excited about?
I think in the short term, we'll be announcing results from Ghanea, our first discovery. We've now tested 5 of the 6 zones. We're going to the 6th zone very soon. In addition to announcing those flow rates, we'll give you an update on the net meters of pay we have in the well. We think that number is going to go up, which will impact the resources. Another big catalyst coming in the next, say, 45 to 60 days is Ituko. It's a well we're drilling in the Lokichar Basin, but on the other side of the basin, on the ramp side. It's a big structure. It's got 230 million barrel potential. We're well into the well now. I can't release any results, but that's going to be a big impact well for us. A bit further down the road, we've got additional wells. We'll have 3 more rigs come in to give us a total of 6 rigs. We've got some big wells coming, one in Block 9 that we operate called Bahasi. We've got another well in South Omo that'll follow back-to-back with Sabisa. And we'll continue to drill in that Lokichar Basin for quite some time. We're drilling a well in the Ogaden Basin of Ethiopia with New Age that should spud around July.
What's the size of the reserves you're sitting on now, Jim?
We don't really have reserves, but the prospective resources, if you looked at our presentation on our website, if you looked at the unrisked total number, gross, it could be as high as more than 20 billion barrels. But if you look at that more realistically, I think on a risked net basis, we're looking right around 1 billion barrels. And we think that 1 billion barrels is actually feasible, achievable within just the Lokichar Basin itself.
Well, before I let you go, Jim, Africa Oil are a partner of the Oil Council, and we've seen you and the management team around several times. What do you get out of joining in a conference like this for 2 days? What does it mean for you?
I think it's mostly networking. These investor-oriented conferences are a little different than other conferences where you have more technical people. So this is a good chance to meet a lot of new people, different faces, get the Africa Oil message out there. It's a good mix of people, and it happens to be in Paris.
Great. Jim, we wish you all the best in the next 12 months.
Thank you, Derek.